Great Debaters Contest is brought to you by Safaricom M-Pesa.
Welcome to the best debating show this side of the Sahara, the Great Debaters Contest, Kiambu edition. I am Mariam Bishar.
And I am Austin Yambok. Home versus away. Our motion today is all schools should be boarding schools. We have Alliance Girls High School versus Mary Leakey Girls. Who will be the victor?
Proposer number 1, you have 3 minutes.
My name is Doline Wanjiko from the Mary Leakey School, and I'm here to strongly, firmly, if not crusade, for the motion, all schools should be boarding schools. Now, a school is an institution that is set up to teach or to educate a certain activity, skill, or a particular subject. And a school can also refer to a department in a university. For example, we normally say School of Medicine, School of Economics. Also, school without the article "a" means the process of learning. And now, schools are basically divided into two. You can decide to basically divide them into two. That is day schools and boarding schools, under which other categories may emerge, such as mixed or gender-based schools. A day school simply refers to a non-residential school whereby the students live at home and only go to school during the day. On the other hand, a boarding school refers to a school whereby the students live in the school for a certain school year, after which they go home for a holiday, depending on the agreed set and rules principles. So now, let me try to give you an example of my first experience while I was in boarding school. You see, when I joined my school, my guardian, bought for me 5 pairs of socks. And then, within the first week, all my socks were stolen and I was only left with a pair. And mind you, this is the first term, and I'm not close to going for midterm. So I really struggled with myself because I used to wash my socks, you dry them, you know what you do, those who are in boarding schools, and then you hang them on the windows, and then you're afraid if the teacher on duty will come and throw them away. And I learned to survive. I am still living and I'm still surviving even now that I'm in Form 4. So what is my point? My point is that boarding schools enable us to be self-independent, self-reliant. So, for example, I can also give you an example. When you are young, when you are a toddler, no one ever taught you that now, this is how you walk. You walk like this, like this, like this, like this. You had to take tumbles and tosses so that you may get there. So this is how I'm comparing the same with boarding schools. So boarding schools give us a chance to be self-reliant and to make it out there where nobody will really be watching over you. Secondly, boarding schools are less costly. Most of you will tend to disagree with me, but let me give you an example. On this side, let's assume I have 40 students who are day scholars, and on the other hand, I have 40 students who are boarding school, and let's say that they are going from school to their homes. So this means that for the day scholars, each and every one of them will have to pay for their fuel. But for the boarding school, they do not have to go anywhere. So does it mean that because you're a day scholar, you do not eat? Does it mean that you do not does it mean that, yeah, I think that's it. But boarding schools are less costly only if you choose to read between the lines. Thank you.
Opposition, you have 3 minutes for your opening remarks.
Hilda Kibagendi from Alliance Girls High School stands here to greatly oppose the motion that says all schools should be boarding schools. To start on the basics, what is a school? A school is an institution where people are taught. Therefore, what is a boarding school? A boarding school is a school where students live as well as study. Therefore, when we say all schools should be boarding schools, which are these all schools which you're talking about? They may be day schools. These are schools where students go home in the evening, or they may be homeschools. These are schools where students are taught at home. They may be through physical tutors or online tutors. So, as I say, all schools should not be boarding schools. To start with, being in boarding schools, you are limited to information. How many of you know about the current affair happening right now in Africa? How many know that Africa is coming together to fight ICC, of which South Africa is refusing to defer with South Sudan President Honorable al-Bashir about ICC? How many know about that? So not everyone is aware of what is happening. Mostly those in school. Not everyone is aware of the current affairs that are happening in school or out there. Secondly, not everyone can afford boarding schools. That's why the government has built public schools. These public schools are there to help those who cannot afford to go to boarding schools, such that they can get information, they can learn, and by the end of the day, they can add something, a value in their lives. Being in boarding school, let's take a situation where you've left home and the state, home you've left tension, everything is not well, you've come to school. Tell me, how many students will concentrate on their studies knowing very well that the condition at home is not okay? Sincerely speaking, how many students? You knowing that at home, not everything is okay and you're at school focused. You don't know of what is happening. How many will remain concentrated on their studies? None. So what am I trying to say? Simple. All schools can't be boarding schools. All schools shouldn't be boarding schools. Thank you.
We'll now hear cross-examinations. Proposers, you have 3 minutes.
So, my fellow sisters here have said that we cannot concentrate when we are in boarding schools. That we keep on thinking of things happening at home. Now, my sisters here, I did a little research, and I found out that they had a mean grade of 10.19. You want to tell me those people are not concentrating? Last year, they had a mean score of 10.19. Weren't they concentrating? They were. They were, of course they were. I am Andy Marion Wairi Momosai, and I would like to state this. I am proposing on this debate, and to begin with, I'd like to state that bullying is a great problem that is affecting day scholars also. A recent research that was carried out by the National Education Association stated that 57% of students in South Africa who are day scholars were bullied. This is opposed to the 48% of students who are boarders. Furthermore, in the US, 48% of students do not go to school, and they are day scholars because of fear of being bullied. Bullying leads to low self-esteem. It causes low self-esteem. So you're there, but you're just existing. You're not living. And if any of you here bully, please stop. It is wrong. Now, I would also like to state that boarding schools also help a student to avoid issues at home, domestic issues that might affect them. You see, many homes have different problems, and children suffer these problems. We're talking about 3.3 million to 10 million children are affected by domestic violence. You can imagine. Here's the thing. When you're in school, you're told to think of only your studies. And because you want success, you are only going to do what you've been told to do. You don't have to think of things at home, you know. So these students, the people who keep on going at home, they see the things that are happening around them, and this affects them. So here's the thing. Boarding schools are at least better to help prevent such occurrences that we experience at home. Thank you.
Opposition, you have 3 minutes for cross-examination.
I'm Leshamta Wangui from Alliance Girls High School, here to strongly oppose the motion that states all schools should be boarding schools. I'd like to rebuttal what my sister had said that about information. I don't deny that you get information, but the key thing is that we get limited information. Not that every time I'll be able to go to the internet, access internet every day. In fact, we have large numbers in our schools. Does that mean that because of that, all of us will be able to get that information? Does that mean that? It doesn't. It doesn't at all. Also, about the affairs at home. Okay, it doesn't mean that because I'm in school, I'll forget about the affairs that are there at home. It's human for every one of us to think about what is happening to our loved ones. It's human for us to stand and, think about what is happening to my sister, what is happening to my parents at home, what is happening to my relative. It's human nature. For example, I'm in boarding school, and you see, I get to interact with only the people that are around me. But if I'm not in boarding school, I'll be able to interact with the people who are all from different schools. Because in most cases, not your neighbor at home, or the person you always meet every day is from your school. So then, I'll be able to get information about certain things that some schools would have gotten. For example, they have an essay competition, and schools are being evolved. How am I supposed to know if I am in a boarding school? Well, if I get to interact with them more, I will be able to know about an essay competition, right? Also, when you're in day school, let me not only talk about day school, because there's also homeschooling. My parents will be able to monitor my friends. Thus be able to monitor the small change of my character as I go on. My parents at home will be able to tell me that your friend is not who I want you to be with. Your friend is the right person I want you to be with. And that advice, whom do you expect to get from? You don't expect the teacher to go through over 1,000 pupils and detect the small change, or to monitor you and monitor your friends. I don't think that's possible. I don't, because they also have to teach. Even if they have the responsibility of taking care of you, they will not detect that small thing that may lead you astray. And with that, I stand firmly that not all schools should be boarding schools. Thank you.
If men become innovative, young men become innovative in this country of ours, Kenya, I think it will be a great deal, because I think it will create very many jobs, and it will reduce the rate of crimes in our country. As people will be dependent, they will be able to live a life of their own.
Take part in the M Challenge by sending your short song, rap or poem about Safaricom M-Pesa on WhatsApp, and you could win 1,000 shillings in Safaricom airtime.
The audience has posed questions to the teams on stage. The proposers have been asked from what source did they ascertain that boarding schools make people more self-reliant, and the opposition have been challenged that they said that public schools were set up because boarding schools were expensive. So is that to mean that all these boarding schools were previously private? They'll be responding shortly. Proposer number 3, you have 3 minutes.
My name is Esther Leakey. My friend Daniel happened to ask the source of our information. I'd like to help you recall that our first speaker gave a personal experience. That was the source of her information. My heart does a dance when my fellow opponents say that you cannot get all information In boarding schools, we are secluded, so they'll give you the information you want. So if you want information on celebrities, trust me, you won't get it. You're there to learn. You'll only get educational stuff. My fellow opponents say that not all people can afford school fees. According to the press release on February by PS Jacob Kaimenyi, the average fees for boarding schools in Kenya is 58,044. The average fees for day schools is 38,876. But I would like you to ask a question. Who says the scholars do not eat food? Who says where they live they have no electricity? Who says they do not need to wear clothes? Who says they do not need fare to work? All these expenses will eventually add up, probably to more than even what boarding schools pay. My friends, this is about quality. It's said that education is key to success. Do you want to compromise your education? Do you want to compromise your success? If boarding schools are the way to success, that's the only way you'll have to get it. A few years in boarding schools won't hurt. And as I continue, boarding schools give parents a relief, knowing that my child in school has enough time to study. Mwai Kibaki, the former president of Kenya, at one time attended Nyeri High School. The current president, Uhuru Kenyatta, attended St. Mary's, Nairobi. These are some of the successes brought forward by boarding schools. So my friends, I leave it up to you. Will a few years of struggling hurt so that you can succeed in life? Or will you prefer to lose it just because of a few years of freedom? Thank you.
Opposition, you have 3 minutes to respond to the audience.
My name is Lian Adhiambo Agutu, and I'm from Alliance Girls High School. And I would like to oppose the motion that all schools should be boarding schools. Now, in connection with what in connection with a question that has just been asked, that are all boarding schools private? The answer to that is no. But then, as was said by the second speaker, she spoke about public day schools. Now, when we talk about public day schools, there is the project on having free education in public day schools, as well as the school fees in public day schools has been subsidized to cater for any person who is not able to afford. Now, away from that, I'd like to also say that being in boarding school kind of hinders family ties between families. You know, for people to be in a family, they have to know each other, they have to learn each other, and therefore, when people are away in boarding school, there is that hindrance. There is a way that when people are home in day school with their parents, with the rest of their family, with siblings, with guardians. In this way, people are able to learn each other because families are breaking, not because of anything else, but just because families don't know each other enough. Next, there is the issue of time management. Now, when we talk about time management, in boarding school, yes, people are able to learn how to manage their time, but then in day school, there is a bigger advantage, or in school that is not boarding school. This is because, let's give an example of day school. People have to get home, and also with all these distractions that have been cited, they have to know that they have to do their homework, they have to get to school on time. And on that note, we see that in day school, there is better time management. And therefore, I would also like to emphasize on a point that was made by one of the members from the opposing side, that's my side. They said that about information. Now, her point was not that in boarding school people do not get information, but the point was that in boarding school there is limited access of information. And as she said, that if you want to get information on celebrities, now nobody talked about celebrities, but then because they're there, they form part of our society, and getting information on them would therefore not be wrong. And therefore, I would like to still stand and stick to my opinion that boarding schools, that not all schools should be boarding schools. Thank you very much.
We'll hear closing submissions now. Proposers, you have a minute.
For the conclusion, my fellow opponents here are a great performing school. I mean, I saw you even, another time you were celebrating that there was a girl who emerged the first in the whole country, right? Yes, there was. Yes, we agree. Now, here's the thing. Aren't you in a boarding school? You are, aren't you? Yes. Now, in my opinion, I think that it's a little selfish if you say that all schools should not be paid boarding. I mean, it's working for you. Why shouldn't it work for other people?
Opposition, you have a minute for your final submission.
I'd like to receive that information. I'd like my parent to know whom I'm going round with. Okay, for your point to say that we're trying to be selfish so that other schools are not boarding schools, but did you consider about other people? We are not all the same, right? Or are you like me? Are you like him? Are you like her? No, you're not. So you're supposed to consider us as individuals. As individuals. So then, does that mean that all schools should be boarding schools? Get us right. We didn't say that no school should be a boarding school. We only said that not all schools should be boarding schools. But some can be day schools, others can be home schools. And well, we get that also day schools and homeschooling gets people to have a successful future. It doesn't mean that I'm for a poor background that it's a must I go to a boarding school. If you give an example of someone who went to a day school and become prosperous, are you saying are you trying to tell me that that was a lie or something? No. The thing is, not all schools should be boarding schools. No school should be boarding schools. Thank you.
For Alliance Girls, Hilda, you have presence. The only challenge that I had was struggling to follow through the logic of your submissions. I think at some point I'm lost. You bring in ICC, you bring in devolution, you bring in the CS for devolution, and Waiguru. And then I ask myself, where are we going? Aleshamte, you're a good debater, good rebuttal. And you talk about the advantages of day schools and homeschooling so passionately that I'm actually convinced that this is a good way, a very good way to go. And then, Leanne, your response to questions is very intelligent. And I must commend you for that. You come across as being very well read and very articulate, and you also have very good stage presence. I mean, you're confident on the stage and you basically own it. And we have no choice but to listen.
The Mary Leakey Girls Wanjiku, you're the first debater. Sometimes you need to get terms to express a given thought. I saw sometimes you're resorting to hand action, It's good to get the term, the appropriate term to express what exactly you want to talk about. Again, avoid unnecessary repetition. For example, I can give an example of, that's just unnecessary repetition. Mushai, again, I love your rebuttal, the rebuttal and also the audience involvement. We always have a problem with someone who speaks and ignores the audience. But once I have an audience and my intention or my purpose is to persuade them and you engage them, then definitely we shall score you for that. Esther, response to question, I think it was wise when you talked about personal experience and you say that personal experience can be used as evidence in a debate, and I quite agree with you.
For Mary Leakey, I think for you, Dorleen, all you need to do is simply just work on your coherency and flow. You're very confident. You come over and you start off very well, coupled with your smile, of course, and Marion as well is on top of that, which is lovely. That shows that you're very confident when you come to the stage. Esther, I think you're very sober. You bring in that soberness in the motion that, hey, we still mean business in this. And I think you really bring it out very well, even from the cross-examination you bring in at first. To Alliance Girls, Hilda, You're a great speaker. You're very passionate. You're very strong as a first speaker. But nonetheless, you took us round before you came to the point. And I think it has been addressed. You know, we went to matters devolution, matters ICC. And I was asking myself, where is the motion? Agutu, very intelligent. I think that's what I saw. You know, very intelligent. You come to the stage and you really speak out your mind. And we could flow. There was a flow of your submissions. Good mastery of language as well. All the best to the two teams.
Mary Leakey, the judges gave you 64%. Please give them a hand. Our lovely hosts, Alliance Girls High School, the judges gave you 69%.
Congratulations to the two teams, and we'd like to send our gratitude to Safaricom M-Pesa and KBC Channel 1, and urge members of the audience and also our viewers back home. Follow us on Twitter at Great Debaters EA and all our other social media platforms. I am Austin Nyambok.
And I am Mariam Bishar. We'll catch you next time.
The Great Debaters Contest was brought to you by Safaricom M-Pesa.